Hello, my name is Anders, and I was just talking to my team, trying to get them rallied. We're making maybe 100,000 a day in affiliate marketing, passive income, leveraged through AI and crypto, and you can too, if you just follow my advice. And the number one secret I was just telling everyone about here really is that I watch Thorin's YouTube channel. You should too.
Now, if you were watching the major, and you surely were, you will have seen a graphic that they kept playing on screen, showing that Aleksib, in-game leader of Na'Vi, who ended up winning the major, had an unbeaten record against former teams of his since he joined his newest team, Na'Vi, and that meant he had beaten ENCE, OG, G2, and Ninjas in Pyjamas NIP in every instance of matches that he played them since he joined the Ukrainian organisation Na'Vi. Now, the reason this is quite a cool stat, aside from it just being so unlikely, is you have to consider, aside from when he got into G2 and now Na'Vi, these weren't actually teams when he was playing for them that were guaranteed to be better than his former team. In fact, obviously, one of the things about Aleksib is he's been kicked/replaced in so many teams, and sometimes in quite harsh fashion, and obviously has been in a bunch of teams not given enough talent to work with. So actually, it's not taken for granted that just because he's an all-time great IGL, in my opinion, or very good IGL, that he would beat his former teams. I even think, if you think of some of the teams he was on and then removed from, it's actually unlikely that would happen. Like, think about this. ENCE, right? In theory, was one of the best teams in the world. They kicked him out, and then he was supposed to just be going to this new OG project, and then should, on paper, be way better than him. Like, that lineup, and then adding in Sonny should have been monstrous and potentially won events. They weren't as good. Obviously, OG was better, especially once we got to online play, although they even beat them online if you don't know the Ice Challenge. Then OG themselves. I mean, OG was never that good a team, except when Aleksib was there. He had him number 6 in the world online. Then when they got after that, and he went off to G2, obviously G2 and any of his teams were better than OG, if we're being real, and obviously would beat them. G2, let's be real, they were as good because they won 3 massive tournaments without him, but they were pretty good when he was there as well. And let's be real, they had Nico and Monacy, and then they got JKS, so it's not like also on the talent one, that one's one you'd actually expect to be better. And then in terms of NIP, look, to be fair, Na'Vi should be better, and he did have Simple at the beginning, but Nip was never as good. I mean, remember, when this guy was in NIP, he had them like this far from actually making the playoffs of the last ever major in CS2. And by the way, if you look, they would have been, in theory, I don't actually know how the Bucot system would have worked, but if we're assuming that they were in apEX's spot, TL was very beatable, and then you'd be in the semis. They could have actually been in the semis of that last ever major with fucking NIP, with that dodgy ass head trick lineup. Big thanks to Ridge for sponsoring the channel and this video. If you want to save as part of their Father's Day sale, go to ridge.com/Thorin. I've got a new one. If you don't know, Ridge Wallet's been around ages. After 10 years, 2 million wallets made. I think they're easily one of the best in the world. And actually, this Father's Day sale, as well as being a chance to save up to 40% on some of the best items on their website, I actually think your dad or a male relative in your life is the ideal person to get a Ridge wallet for, if not yourself. Like, first of all, if you see any of my past videos, this is actually a brand new one that I got from them recently. This is my old one. I had this one for years and years, since 2020. I still thought it was great, but obviously they offered to give me a new one. On this wallet, one of the best features of it is, as you can see, it's really small. Look how small it is compared to all these things that you can see it next to. Like, it's tiny, but it fits all these cards. You could put even more than this. I just don't put as many as other people. On this back area, I keep my bonus cards, or like stamp cards where you collect a free whatever. And this, one of the reasons why I think for male relatives, this is excellent as well. If you want to get it for your old man, a brother, a nephew, an uncle, etc., is... I can relate to this. I'm a bit of a boomer myself. I don't really go out there and try loads of new things or buy like the brand new things with all the technology guys. You know, I tend to stick with what I'm used to, like old ass wallets. Like everyone knows the style, like a Velcro one or a leather one or the one with the coin area, etc. By the way, speaking of which, obviously on this one, I personally don't use the coin tray, but I put it into my old one just to show you. Like it also comes, you can get a coin tray as well. So that then the idea is that goes in there and then, yeah, you've got your coins inside, right? If you want coins as well, there's all sorts of different options as to what you can do. I doubt any male relative of yours has one of these. So I also think, like me, when they get it, initially they're going to think like, oh, what do I want that for? But then when they try it, they're actually going to realize, oh, it's way better to have something small. It all fits together. It's got the system, you just push there and then the cards start to come out. Just makes it way simpler, way more efficient, less clutter in your pocket, etc. Obviously, this sale runs from now, it's currently active, until the 15th of June. I would suggest if you don't get one for your old man, get one for yourself. Also, by the way, it's got all sorts of other features, like you can get with RFID blocking to stop digital pickpocketing. Comes in 50 different colours. I got a blue one this time, and styles. Obviously, that was a sort of like a metallic sort of shade on this one. There's a 99-day money-back, no questions asked guarantee, in case you just want to test it out, see if it's any good. Also, you can get a lifetime warranty on this, depending on if it's going to get scuffed over time. I've had mine years and years, kept in really good nick. Also, another one, a more recent thing I got, was this key case. So it's the same concept as the wallet, but with keys. So again, you have an area here, you push to make the keys come out. You got your keys. I've only put 2 in myself, personally. This is actually really small as well. Look how tiny this is. Again, look how small it is. It's really not that big at all. And the best part about this is not only does it keep the keys safe and stay and in the same position, but if you notice, listen to this. Obviously, it's got a little hook here. Like it's got 2 of these. You've got a clip here you can clip on. I personally use that for like a magnet to put my keys on. If you just had a hook, obviously you can hook it on like that. But a detail I actually think's mad underrated is, if you listen to this, I'll take the edge of it. Notice it doesn't make some big jangly sound, like if you have an old normal keychain or something in your pocket, or an actual physical chain that comes out, or a double clip with a thing on it. Like, it also doesn't make much sound either. It's great in that sense. Fits 1 to 6 keys, depending on how many you want to put there. Again, it's nice slim design. I think all these products are actually just really useful, really good. Seems like they're very well engineered. I'm a big fan of Ridge, actually, so shout out to Ridge. Obviously, if you want to save up to 40% for yourself or a relative for Father's Day, check out their sale, which runs until the 15th of June, and you can get big savings at ridge.com/Thorin. So if we go and look at the actual graphic, this is the one you will have seen, right? This is actually, I believe, before he played the semi-final against G2. So the actual stat should be 6-0 for G2. But you have here, he beat Ents the one time he played them. This is just matches also, by the way, not like best of 3s or not maps. So just matches, as in each instance of an overall game, whether it's a best of 3 series or a best of 1. So he beat Ents once, OG once, NIP once, and G2 5 times, except as I say, after the major semis, it's 6 times. So if we go and look at some of these results, I can actually also talk about the context of these results. So the top result was obviously, it said against Ents, his original team, except this is obviously when it's already the Ents of people like, this is when Glaive has essentially the lineup that later split up to become Heroic and Falcons, but obviously Glaive remained, and then DK remained, and then they made the Polish lineup that got to go top 6 at IM Katowice. So what happened was at Blast World Finals, when Glaive had just moved over, Na'Vi, who themselves, by the way, had only had wonderful alpha, I think, since the fall finals, beat them 2-1 in the series. You see here, there was 1 map win by Ents, which was a close win on Ancient. The rest was a heavy win by Na'Vi on Anubis and a close win on Nuke. So there's the first one you took out. Then for OG, he played them with Na'Vi at IM Cologne, so very early on in being in Na'Vi. And this was a result when he still had Simple in the team. They won 2-1 also on this one. There was a narrow, this is actually back when we still had MR15, so there was a narrow win on Anubis. There was a decent-sized win for OG on Inferno, and then there was a better win for Na'Vi on Ancient to win the series. Obviously, in this particular case, you would heavily favour this new Na'Vi project, even though they were new. It was very ambitious to beat OG, because this is the OG that still has Nexus, the IGL, and just was a dodgy-ass lineup with Fasher, etc. Just never got going this team properly. And then for the G2 ones, it's easy, because he actually never even played G2 when he was in an IP, so this would only be for Na'Vi anyway. So upon joining Na'Vi, he plays G2 quite early on with Huxley, etc. In the group stage of Blast Premier Fall, beats him 2-0, both very, very close games, admittedly. Then you have this one at the Blast World Final. It's a 2-1 for Na'Vi this time. G2 wins Anubis, pretty close. This is when we moved to, it's an overtime game. A very close win for Na'Vi on Inferno, massive win for Na'Vi on Nuke. Then you have this year's Blast Spring Groups, which was a 2-1 win again for Na'Vi. This time Na'Vi won like a comfortable OT game on Overpass. They lost narrowly on Inferno, which is obviously one of the better G2 maps, and then they won decently sized on Anubis. Then you had, also in the same group, they played in the group final, if you remember. Na'Vi won this one as well. This was a 2-0 this time, 13-9, 13-5. Then you go to the major itself. There was a BO1 in the Swiss system, where they won 13-11 on Nuke. Then you come to the playoffs. In the playoffs, they won 2-1 in the semi-finals, famously, where, if you remember, Na'Vi won on an OT game on Anubis. Then you had a massive win for G2 on Nuke, and then the epic Ancient game where JL went crazy on the third map, and that got Na'Vi through to the finals. Otherwise, it'd probably be G2 in the final. And quite frankly, I think FaZe and Carrigan would have won the major. And then the lone NIP results, is quite frankly, NIP just wasn't good enough to make it deep in tournaments, was at Blastfall finals when it was early on in his time in Na'Vi, but when he got Wonderful, when he played NIP, it was a 2-0. It was a close game on Overpass, and then it was a sound thrashing on Mirage. And there we go, there's all the wins he had. So 9-0 in matches, not 8-0 like that graphic showed you, since joining Na'Vi. But actually, it's even crazier than that, because that's only, as that graphic showed you, since he joined Na'Vi. Well, he only joined Na'Vi in 2023, didn't he? After, obviously, the period when he'd been benched at NIP. So if you actually expand it out further and just make it ever since Aleksib left ENCE, and we'll include online, because obviously the OG was mainly online, and there's not that many other online games anyway. If we just include since he left ENCE, what is Aleksib's record against his former teams? I can tell you it's insane. I'll do both the LAN and the online version, right? Spoiler, he's only ever lost 2 matches, ever. If we're going total, he's won 20 matches and lost 2 against his former teams. And if we're going LAN only, no online games, no qualifiers, he's won 17 matches and lost 2 against former teams, which is fucking bonkers, obviously. I mean, for that LAN one, 17-2, that's like 89% win rate against his former teams. So what I'll do is I'll just show you all these matches and you can just see them all. So first of all, I just thought amusingly, there was this interview he did right after he had gone to the Ice Challenge, the first time he ever met a former team, where he beat ENCE, and he just said in the headline on HLTV, it feels good to beat your former teammates, with the storyline behind it. And it's like, yeah, no shit. So let's get into it. The first instance, we're going to go team by team. If we're doing when he plays ENCE while he's in OG, as I say, the Ice Challenge was a LAN. It was that one won by Mouse Spots, remember, against Na'Vi in the final, whereas part of that like 5 finals, as we were about a month or 2 away from going to the online era. Obviously, this is the beginning of February. And in this tournament, OG beat ENCE 2-0. It was an overtime game on Train. There was a massive win on Overpass. That was the lineup with Sonny, etc. And this was when you had the original OG lineup with Mantu and Issa and Valde, etc. Then after that, you had an online game, because we've come to the online era now. We're into September of 2020, and it's a 2-1 win in ESL Pro League. And this was actually even when they'd already got Yampi into the team. It was obviously a skilled player. It was Vakband at the time. By the way, he's now a Valorant Pro and could actually play CS2 if he wanted. And this is when they had the same lineup, but with Yampi at that point in time. So they've kicked out X7, it looks like, at this point in time. They won that 2-1. Then there was a game in IEM False. There's actually a LAN match. This is when he was playing with OG against ENCE this was the RMR, if you remember the EU RMR, but it was one of the early LANs, although it was a studio LAN. It was in like Stockholm, whatever, quality hotel or whatever, best quality or whatever the fuck it's called. So this was like a massive OT game that they won on Mirage. Then you have Antwerp in the Challengers stage. This is the major. He's playing for G2 against ENCE at this point in time. And you can see here, this is the ENCE that has Spinks and Snappy. This is a totally different one, not the Finnish lineup now. So this was a really good team, if you remember. Like, this is a team, by the way, that was considered one of the squads. Remember, they'd been in the final of ESL Pro League. That should actually be one of the potential like dark horses to win this major. Beats them 2-0. Confident, massive win on Dust 2. Very close OT lost on Ancient and massive win on Mirage. Obviously, he has Nico and very young Monacy at the time. Then I am Dallas, so while he's still in G2, he actually lost. This is one of the 2 losses he ever had. By the way, both losses were actually against ENCE. And this was against, I am Dallas, this was against the ENCE team, which had been in the semi-finals of that previous major, the tournament just before. But this is when they had to take Snacks instead of Spinks, if you remember, because it was in America, Dallas, and for whatever reason, Spinks couldn't attend. But shockingly, G2 did lose. By the way, it's probably one of the results that did cost Aleksib his career in G2 in his particular spot. So he didn't get to have his own mini era and him get JKS and Swanee as a coach instead of having Extaz and Jax, right? And you can see in this game, like, Monacy does all right, Nico's all right. The problem is Jax just mega feeds and Hunter just has his issues. So that's one of the rare losses. Then at IEM Cologne, not that long afterwards, he actually beats ENCE, same ENCE lineup, but this time with Spinks back in, so in theory the better one, and Spinks even does well. This is before Spinks went over to Vitality. It's one of the last events, remember, before the player break and before he signed with Vitality. This is a 2-0. Close win, remember, MR15, close win on Dust 2, massive win on Ancient. Then you go over at the Blast Paris, so the last ever CSGO major. In NIP, he played against ENCE, and this was the ENCE that had Nerds. Spinks had moved on the previous year, obviously, but still an extremely good lineup. Obviously, not that long after this major, this team went and actually won a LAN. They won IEM Dallas for 2023. So only the second loss he ever had against his former teams, this one was also on LAN, was this particular one at the Blast Paris Major in a BO1 on Vertigo, and still a reasonably close game. And obviously this is when famously he's playing Vertigo, a map that he didn't used to play in a lot of his former teams, right? Then you have, at the rest of the major, they played in the Swiss portion in the best of threes, and he was able to win 2-0 with NIP over ENCE. By the way, at this point in time, this NIP team is not supposed to beat this ENCE team in a best of three. Like, this team was one of the top 3 to 4 teams in the world. NIP was nowhere close, but that's how you know Aleksib just cooks. Then at the Blast World Final, as mentioned before, he beat ENCE with Na'Vi. Then we had him beat with NIP at Blast Fall in 2022. So very early on in joining NIP, the 2-0'd OG. Just clapped him. Was a very close game on Ancient OT. And then it was a comfortable win on Vertigo. Then he beat OG at ESL Pro League Season 17. It's the one that was won by FaZe over ENCE, if you remember. It was at the second big tournament they won. And, oh no, sorry, this is actually the one this is not the second one, that was 2022. 2023 is the one where they won the Grand Slam by winning this one. So 2-0's OG. This is the OG that has Dexter in it at the time, and Flames and Nico. This is a pretty good lineup of players, even though it wasn't that good a team overall. Still a mess of an NIP lineup, but he wins anyway, 2-0. Then you have, this is an online game in the Blast Spring Showdown for Europe. NIP beats OG 2-1 here. They lose one. Comfortable loss there, but then they win massively on the other two. And you can see this is still an era where it's good, but they actually had Smoothia standing in because it was an online game, so why not? Then we have in the closed qualifier for IEM Dallas that year, NIP beats OG 2-0 there. Comfortable win, very close win. You go look again. This is when they had the Dexter, Neo Frag lineup, etc. Dexter's going ham as usual. Then you had it at the major. OG lost to NIP in overtime on Mirage. He beat his old dudes there. Then you had, when he joins Na'Vi, they win in Cologne over OG, 2-1 there. Lost a close game there. I've already talked about some of this before. You beat G2 when he was there. Obviously, we've seen some of these results because I already went to when he joined Na'Vi, and then all the rest of them are when he's in Na'Vi and he gets these particular wins. So if you go overall, it's actually bonkers, the overall stats. Because as I say, if you include all matches, including online games, he has 20 match wins and 2 losses. By the way, one of them was just a BO1 at a major and that was against an ENCE that was a very good team. And then you have 17-2 in matches is the result they on LAN against his former team. So again, I thought this was just an interesting piece of trivia. I'd show people the context of the wins. Like, he is, I think, going to go down as one of the best in-game leaders of all time. But he already got an amazing resume. He's won a major now, finally. And just what he's done to his former teams is very impressive. Sometimes they're teams he should have beat. Sometimes in terms of people like G2, you probably shouldn't beat them on paper. You probably shouldn't be beating some of those ENCE lineups, actually, even though they're not the same as the ones that you played for necessarily. In this esports world, it can seem like everyone's against you, but I've always got the Skrilluminati, my Patreon community, riding with me, and it is thanks to the support of the following people, this video and all of them on my channel are made possible. Matt, Pugnatio, Rajcula, Ahmed Hadjou, Frisky, Tosh, Jensen Goh, Animosity, Torin, Tobias Bernasconi. If you've ever watched my videos, you know now I'm going to give a massive shout out to Jerky's Minion, the main man. Do you want to suggest a topic or a guest for my content? You want teasers? Find out who the upcoming interview guests are. Maybe you want to ask me a question. I tend to answer them at length in my video AMA. Do you want to take part in one of those dinner discussions where we talk about what you're interested in esports? Well, if any of these perks or more appeal to you, put your money where your mouth is. Join the Skrilluminati today, where in the description box below is a Patreon link.